afternoon, and I'll be showing off some live gameplay of the weather feature there, just to give you guys an idea of what we have improved since last year. Cool.
Next.
Okay.
The question I see quite a lot is how much functionality or content is listed for the free version?
Very little, to be honest. The free version is the PlayStation Plus version, and this is in addition to your regular PlayStation Plus content. So there's the kind of the regular games that you would get as part of PS Plus, and then Drive Club is in addition to that. And it was a kind of a special deal we negotiated with Sony themselves, really. The idea behind the PS Plus edition isn't, we're not trying to nickel and dime people with this, right? There's no microtransactions. This isn't a kind of stealth way to kind of make more money. This is really a way to get the game into the hands of as many people as possible. Drive Club it's a game that I guess lives or dies on its community. It is a community game. It's a service. It's a racing platform, if you like. And without that community, the game isn't quite as rich as we wanted it to be. So that's why we had this negotiation with Sony. It was like, how can we get this into people's hands? So the PlayStation Plus edition is completely feature complete. It has one-to-one parity with the retail version. The only difference between the two, and obviously you have to have a difference for the people that are actually going to pay their hard-earned money towards it, is just there's more cars and more tracks in the retail version. But that's it. So if you want to make clubs, if you want to play challenges, if you want to play head-to-head multiplayer, like all of that functionality exists in the PS Plus edition. And we've designed it in such a way that for the duration of, however long it's in PS Plus, I mean, we don't know how long we're going to keep it in there, we'll see how it goes, but for as long as it's in PS Plus, all of the free content updates, you'll get them for the PS Plus version as well. So you could happily play Drive Club without spending a single cent, and you won't feel like you have any kind of sort of crippled experience as a result of that. It will be, completely feature parity with the retail version. Cool. Hey.
Obviously, PlayStation 4 purports itself as a bit of a social platform. When it came to creating a racing game, a traditional racing experience, how did that social aspect influence the development?
Actually, in one way, we influenced the platform a little bit. Drive Club as a concept, we've been kicking around for about 10 years now. And we had this, the original idea for Drive Club was a way to connect car enthusiasts, racing fans together in some kind of online experience. We didn't quite know what it was back then, because 10 years ago, this is before Facebook, before social networking, before online gaming was really a mainstream thing. So we had all these ideas, but we didn't really feel there was a platform there to support it. We didn't quite know how to deliver on it. And so we parked the concept, excuse the pun. And then it was only really, this is one of the advantages of being a first-party developer. We get really early access to all the hardware. And we spent some time with Sony, with SCEI in Japan, the hardware team. And they didn't have really anything. This is the early days. They just had this vision for what PS4 was. So this is going back a long time now. And we started talking to them about what they were proposing for PlayStation 4. Not so much what the tech was going to be, but really what the vision for the platform was. And they were talking about social and connectivity and a shared experience. And the more that they were talking about, the more we thought, you know what, guys, this is the right opportunity for us to kind of bring back Drive Club, if you like, to take another look at that concept and see what we can do for PlayStation 4. So as Sony continued to develop the PS4 and we started work on Drive Club, what we realised was that there was a great deal of parity, but also there was a way for us to kind of influence the direction that the platform was going to go in. There was ideas that we were having for Drive Club that were absolutely right for PlayStation 4. And so Sony were like, yeah, we love that, tick, we want all of those things. And so we helped kind of mould the platform, both from a hardware level and also from a kind of a software integration standpoint. So the relationship's been awesome, it's been absolutely fantastic. And I don't think that Drive Club would not have happened without PS4, I can guarantee that. It needed that kind of grand vision from Sony for the platform about this connected experience in order for us to deliver Drive Club. Thank you. Cool, no problem.
With the whole community interaction side of things that's been designed with it, would there be maybe a port towards the Oculus Rift side of things?
Well, you mean Morpheus, right?
More like sort of just VR or augmented reality sort of concept.
Sure, I mean, that's an interesting point. So I don't know how many people know this. It's the internal technology group who are the guys within Sony that work on Project Morpheus, and they were previously the 3D team. They work on basically a lot of the kind of innovative technologies that Sony produce. They're actually on the same site as us back in the UK. It's like a military facility. Like there's all the windows are blacked out. You need a different security code to get in. But I know the guys on that team really well, so I've had a little sneak in and had a look at what those guys were looking at. So I was lucky. Myself and a couple of other senior guys at the company got a real early look at Morpheus, and it's an incredible piece of kit. It really is. From a design point of view, it's the early days of VR, really. Even though this is kind of almost the second coming of VR, like we, as designers, we don't quite know how to harness the hardware just yet. Because what we're finding is that traditional game experiences don't always translate very well to VR, and actually experiences that don't work in 2D work exceptionally well in VR. So we're kind of learning what works and what doesn't work. So with regards to anything specific related to Drive Club, like I can absolutely categorically say we've not done any work on Drive Club for VR. Whether we do in the future or not, I don't know. That's kind of a decision for a later date. But certainly as a technology and as a designer, like it's something I'm excited about, and I think it's a very different experience to play in sort of, I guess, traditional video games.
Cool, thanks.
All right. Hey.
Every game that's coming out at the moment seems to have DLC. What's the plan for the Drive Club in regards to that?
They're fairly ambitious, I think. As a gamer, I look at DLC and I like the fact that the DLC kind of extends the content for me. If I enjoy a game, I like the fact that there's DLC, there's more for me to play. But I feel a lot of the time with developers, they produce DLC that, like, I feel like I'm just getting what I'm expecting, right? It's another level or it's another expansion to it, but I'm kind of getting the same thing. I wanted to break that cycle with Drive Club. I didn't want us to have that traditional DLC approach. What I wanted to do was kind of open up a dialogue with the community and try and get beyond just traditional DLC and actually start with, well, what is it the community want? Can we this is a social connected experience. We're hoping to have a fairly broad community, and I want to work with the community themselves to try and help define what Drive Club is in the future. So part of that is us being transparent about what we're producing for the game. We've announced our 12-month DLC strategy for the next year. And it includes like a mixture of free and paid for content. We feel it's right to offer the people that have just paid for the game at launch, paid for either retail or digital download, to offer them compelling free content as throughout the life cycle of the product. The paid for content will be the kind of the optional things. The things aren't essential to the gameplay. So maybe more cars, for example, would be a good example. That you may not like those cars, you may not be into those cars, you don't have to pay for them. But all the free content, so things like the weather update, we're working on photo mode as well, which is going to launch before the end of the year. That's going to be free. New tracks are going to be free. We're going to do a new location as well, which I can't tell you anything about at the moment, unfortunately. But there will be a new location launch next year. That's going to be free as well. And we're also going to do free car drops every month. So what we're hoping to do is, we've got a vision for where we want the game to go in the next 12 months. We're hoping there's a great mix of content that people can get behind. And if they want to spend money, they can. But you can totally play Drive Club without, like I said before, without spending a single cent. But we have left some gaps, if you like, in that schedule, some kind of free development time, because we want to work with the community and try and find out what it is that they want us to produce for the game. Like, how do they want to see the game grow? And if we've got the time and the resources to support that, we'll help to kind of grow that game with those people.
Are the tracks real-world tracks, and are there any Aussie tracks?
They're kind of a mix, really. All of the tracks are kind of bespoke, designed in-house, but they are based on real-world locations. So, like all 5 of the locations, so we have Canada, Scotland, Norway, Chile, and India. That's our 5 sort of locations that launch with the game. We visited every single one of those locations, and one of the decisions we made when we were looking at where we were going to set Drive Club was, can we take it to places that you wouldn't traditionally find in a game, specifically a racing game? And like Chile and India in particular, you've not seen these in games before, right? These are completely different locations to what people are used to. And that was a big thing for us. And Drive Club is about, the kind of the emotional connection people have with racing. It's about taking your dream cars and driving them on the world's most, incredible roads. Having that connection, these environments, these locations had to be inspiring. They had to be really kind of immersive and really different. So, as I said, we went to each of those locations. We took elements of them. So we may take a particular section of road that was really cool, or we may just take a particular, not even the road, but the off track. So either a particular mountain or a facility or something that looked really cool. Incorporate that into the game. but then used a bit of artistic license really to kind of stitch everything together. Because what you find is, if you were to just take like the Google Maps data, for example, and just make a race out of that, it would be the most boring race in the world. Like, roads are not designed for racing on; they're designed for driving on, at very sensible speeds. You can't race on them, so you have to adapt. And we've been making racing games now for over 15 years, so we think we know a thing or two about like track design and course design. So we took the real world locations and adapted them and just made them flow a little bit better and turned them into racetracks. That being said, some of the locations in the game, they're so close to reality. We've actually had, I personally, I was in E3 earlier in the year, and I was talking to a bunch of journalists from Chile. And we had the Chile track on the game, and I was kind of talking to them, and they were absolutely blown away by the representation of Chile in the game. And like one of the guys said to me, "Like, I live there. That's where I live. Like, you've totally captured that." And that's great. It means we've done our job well. If they can actually identify parts of the game that look like their home, I think we've done a good job. As for Aussie tracks, there's none in the game at launch. Whether like I said, I can't talk really about what we're going to do in the future. We have one location plan that we've already looked at, we've already done some reference for. What we do in the future, it really just depends how the game grows, and like I said before, while we're working with the community, if there's a particular push for us to incorporate different locations, different areas, and it feels a viable thing for us to do, then of course we'll look at it. We'll never say no to something if we think we can achieve it. Okay.
Obviously this game is targeted to racing enthusiasts, guys who like racing game, but how do you think this game would appeal to other kinds of gamers or more casual gamers?
Sure, yeah, that was a real big thing for us, to make sure that this wasn't just a niche product. One thing that we've worked really hard on is the handling model itself. We spent a long time refining that, and initially trying to define, like, I think every racing game has a kind of a signature, a sort of fingerprint. You pick up, and particularly for studios like ourselves that have been around for a long time, if you play one of our games, it kind of feels like an Evolution game. We have our own sort of unique feel to it. What we wanted to make sure we did with Drive, but with it being a connected game, with it being a social game, the handling has to be accessible. You have to be able to pick it up, play it, and have a good time without thinking too much about it. But because it's launched as a service, or we're launching it as a service, you have to have something that gives you the longevity. So it has to have depth to it as well. So when we were initially kind of pitching this, we wanted to pitch it somewhere between arcade and simulation, which is it's a pretty difficult thing to achieve. There's not many games to try it. People have been asking me about like what kind of I guess inspiration for this game, and really the last game that we looked at that did this, I think, was the Project Gotham Racing series. And as racing fans ourselves, we felt that was missing. There wasn't a racing game that kind of tapped into that sweet spot between arcade and simulation that meant I could play it and it was accessible and I could have a good time with it. But then it was also something that was like sticky. Like I kept coming back to it and kept playing it over and over again. So yeah, we've worked for a long time refining the handling, and actually the year's delay has provided us even more time to continue to refine that experience. So from a pure gameplay point of view, the game should be easy to pick up and play by anybody, whether you're into cars or not. But we're hoping that there's enough content there and there's enough depth to it that you can keep playing. And really the game, the way the progression is structured, means that you kind of grow with the game as well. We've done a lot of user testing on the progression curve and the unlock structure, and making sure that we deliver content to players in the right way. In fact, the last user test we did, which was about, I guess, 3 months ago, 2-3 months ago, the final feedback we got was, please do not change this, it is now perfect. Which is, I was like, okay, done, ship it, I'm going to go on holiday. But that was great feedback, because it meant that all that hard work had paid off. So hopefully you pick it up, you play it, you enjoy it. As you start to get into the more kind of demanding cars, you unlock kind of the supercars and the hypercars. The hope is that as a player, you've grown with the game and you feel like you're in a position to be able to handle those vehicles and you're not intimidated by them. There's a variety of game modes in there to support kind of different play styles. You don't have to be the elite racer. Of course, you can be if you want. If you want to be the person that just, it's all about shaving milliseconds off their lap time. Finding the absolute perfect driving line and being right at the top of the leaderboards, you can be that person. But if you just hooning around and doing, drifts and stuff, you can totally do that as well. That's a perfectly viable play style. Even if you're not really a competitive racer, if you're really into the aesthetics of cars, you're just a car enthusiast, you know. We reward you for, I guess, manufacturer loyalty. Like if you love Ferraris and you just play Ferraris, you can progress by just playing the Ferraris. You can progress through kind of the customization system. Like there's multiple things that hopefully give the game a bit more of a broad appeal rather than just a kind of a more niche racing experience.
The racing genre is pretty packed at the moment.
It's a good time if you're a racing fan, right?
Project cars, sports and all that.
Yeah.
Are you guys worried that's going to hurt sales and community numbers?
Not at all. We don't really consider us, you know. Okay, first and foremost, I'm a racing fan. I've been doing this a long time, and I still get a buzz out of what I do. You know, I have a job that is also my hobby, which is just a great experience. So that means that I'm a racing fan too, and I play racing games. And of course, I'll pick up Forza Horizon. Of course, I'll pick up The Crew. You know, these are games that I'm looking forward to playing as a gamer. But when I've got my design hat on, when I'm actually working, I tend not to. And the same is true for most of the guys at the studio. We don't tend to look outside of what it is that we're doing, partly because we don't have the time. You know, I still haven't finished Destiny. I haven't had time to play it. You know, and I want to. It's just a byproduct of this. You know, it's good now because we're launching next week. We're going to get a bit of free time, and I'll probably pick up a couple of the other racing games and look at them. But prior to that, you know, you kind of design your game or you develop your game almost in isolation. You have a vision at the start of it, and I think if you don't stick to that vision, you're going to cause yourself all kinds of problems. Because, you know I've played games in the past that started as one thing and changed into something else because they were influenced by another title and end up just being washed out. Like they don't have a personality of their own. I wanted to make sure that Drive Club felt like Drive Club. It felt like no other game out there. That was really important to me and the rest of the people on the team. So I think it also helps that, you know, there's like 10, probably even 11 million PlayStation 4s out there at the moment. It's a big market into which to launch a new racing title. So I think we'll do okay.
Okay, we've got time for probably 2 more questions. Is anybody just about that?
The game features music from electronic music group Hybrid. What can you tell us about the music in the game and how it may affect the feel of the game and the player's experience?
Cool, yeah. So at Evolution Studios, we always had a reputation for doing interesting things with our soundtracks. We have, we've on the Motorstorm Apocalypse soundtrack, which was one of our previous titles. You know, we did a mixture of kind of electronic and orchestral sound, and that was really a bit of an experiment for us. Hybrid were one of those artists that kind of pioneered that sound, you know, electronic music with a full orchestra, with a kind of a slightly classical composition. So it felt like the right thing to do for us when we were exploring what we were going to do for Drive Club. You know, we've always shied away from just doing pure licensed tracks. Whenever we've licensed tracks in the past, we've always tried to get somebody else to remix them and do a unique remix for our games. So yeah, it's the second time now we've worked with. Actually, it's probably the first time we've worked with one artist throughout the whole soundtrack. We've done that before, and then we've had other remixes. But this is the first time one artist has actually worked directly with us and produced a whole soundtrack for the game. And you know, we gave them early builds of the game. This wasn't just something where we said, look, this is what we want from you, go away, write it, you know, bring it back. This was a real collaboration. We kept giving them builds of the game. They came to the office, they played it. You know, they wanted to get their heads around what Drive Club was all about. Like, what was the, you know, the vibe behind the game, the emotion behind the game, and they've composed the soundtrack to match that. And I have to say, so when I get back to the UK next week, we've got the launch party for the game, and we've managed to, Hybrid have just said they're going to play a set for us at the launch party. I am very, very excited.
One more
Anyone
question?
more? Anyone? Cool.
Are you happy with what you've created?
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't think I'd be here if I wasn't. I'd be hiding away in my office. Absolutely. Like I've always been. I don't believe in having regrets about what you've done. You know, there's games that I'm lucky that I've managed to sustain a career in this industry, which can be pretty volatile at times. I've been at the same company for 15 years, which not a lot of people can say. You know, we've been pretty lucky. Right, we've produced some good games, but I think a lot of it does come down to luck. And you know, I've worked on games that we haven't launched. I've worked on games that, you know, I've not got off the drawing board. I've got a folder full of concepts at work that have just gone nowhere. You can't get too tied up in that. You can't get too attached to it, and you can't get too, like I said, you can't really have any regrets about that. So I think that you have to just keep looking forward every single time. And whilst, you know, last year, to make the decision to delay the game was disappointing in some ways because it meant that, you know, we couldn't give the people what we produced. it was the right decision for us, and ultimately it was a decision that we made as a studio. We decided that, you know what, it's a good game, but it's not really a great game right now, and we want to make it a great game. So what we have now, I'm extremely proud of it. I'm nervous a little bit, because when you're launching a game that's a service and you're trying to make the community, help the community to get involved in it, I don't know where this is going to go. If I come back here next year and I'm talking to you about Draft Club again, I don't know what I'm going to be talking about, because I don't know where the game's going to go. But that's also really exciting, and I can't wait for people to get their hands on it. Cool. We out of time?
I think we're out of time.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
A few cameras in the room, so if you would like to just kind of speak to me about getting some additional gameplay footage so that you guys can put together your piece, then we'd be happy to make sure that that's provided. Supporting assets can be found on our press site, so if you've got a pen, I'll just read it out in case you don't have access. It's www.scce-press.com. Sorry, I'm having a mental blank. But like I said, thank you, Simon, that was fantastic. If you guys would like any particular one-on-one time with Simon, just to kind of dive into the product a bit deeper, please come and see us on our booth. We'll be more than happy to schedule things in for you. But in the meantime, shout if you've got any questions, otherwise we'll see you on the booth. And have a good show, it's going to be big. There's a lot out there. Thanks for your time, guys.